Hello everyone, and welcome to another time-lapse art video horror movie review with me, Angela of Morbid Heart Designs. Recently we talked about Interview with the Vampire, so it only felt appropriate to talk about the next movie that was released in this series, Queen of the Damned. But it should be noted, Queen of the Damned is actually the third book in Anne Rice's Chronicles of the Vampire Chronicles, whatever way it's called, and she was actually against the studio making this movie for the fact that she felt the fans wanted to see the second book, The Vampire Lestat, before this, so she didn't cooperate in the making of this. Whereas the Interview with the Vampire, she wrote the novel and the screenplay, and that really added a lot to that, and I feel like that was actually detrimental. Well, there's a lot of detrimental things that happened to this particular movie, but it was definitely detrimental. Now, when I say detrimental things and a lot of that, I absolutely love this movie. It is by all means not the greatest, well-produced, most amazing movie, but I love this movie. I love vampires. It makes my former goth, like my little goth that's still inside, so happy to watch this movie. I love the soundtrack. It's a soundtrack I listen to this day. This movie came out in 2002, the early goth days of my life, so I was obsessed with this movie. And I'm still obsessed with the soundtrack. It's one of my go-to things to listen to. And since I'm speaking about the soundtrack, before I go take a giant step back to what I normally do, we're also gonna throw out Jonathan Davis of Korn did the singing in the movie. However, due to contractual issues, he did not do the singing in all of the songs on the soundtrack. I don't think that was actually something bad. It would have been great if he did all of them because I love his voice, but I think it really added to have a lot of my other favorite singers perform and do things. Just my thought. Now, taking a giant step back, this movie is from 2002, as I already said. It's directed by Michael Reimer. Basically, what happens is the vampire Lestat becomes a rock star, and his music is pretty fucking epic. So epic that it awakens the vampire queen Akasha, and she decides that her new king is going to be Lestat, and they will wreak havoc, destroy the world, and claim all the blood for themselves. Premise of the movie, right there. Now let's get into the actors and actresses. First of all, Aaliyah played the Queen of the Damned, Queen Akasha, and I absolutely love her performance choices. Given that Akasha is inspired from Egyptian gods and ancient Egyptian things, the way Aaliyah chose to move and speak really added to this ancient otherworld component of Akasha. Unfortunately, Aaliyah did pass away shortly after principal photography was complete, which means reshots, voiceover work, minor things were still needed, but that couldn't happen because she passed away. In fact, not even a spoiler alert, I guess, this is almost 20 years old, so spoiler alert, but I don't fucking care. The character Akasha ends up dying, and Aaliyah's voice in that scene is actually done by her brother. And then voice technology was used to feminize his voice to make it more like hers, which is an interesting thing. It definitely is one of the scenes that feels off to me, and it comes down to the fact it's not actually Aaliyah there for parts of it. Most of it is CG'd. The CG doesn't really hold up over time, but I don't remember it ever being completely amazing, but it's not enough to take you out of the movie. Now, I feel Aaliyah did a really great job, and I'm not the only one. In fact, she was nominated for a lot of awards like Best Villain, Best Actress. However, Stinker's Bad Movies nominated her for Worst Supporting Actress, which I think is funny given how many different awards she was nominated for. Overall, I did like a lot of the other performers and their interpretations of the roles. I liked Marguerite Muara. She is another main character by the name of Jessie. I also liked Vincent Perez as Maurice, Paul McGain as David, and I also enjoyed Lena Olin as Marharet. The other main character obviously is Lestat, who is portrayed by Stuart Townsend. Now, I don't hate Stuart Townsend as a performer, but I don't like his interpretation or performance of Lestat. His accent seemed to change quite a bit. There wasn't consistency within his performance, and I know he can do better. He's done much better in other movies. So that was kind of super really disappointing. But at least everybody else carried themselves well, so you can survive and deal with it. I did enjoy the costumes in here since it took place in modern times. There wasn't a lot of historical things, and given how old some of the more historical ancient vampires were, you could have a lot of fun with their wardrobe. And I feel like the costume designers did that, and I really enjoyed the variety of goth that you did see. I do feel like the evolution of the plot had issues. It didn't necessarily flow in the best of ways. I do think that Aaliyah passing may have had a lot of influence. I've always felt that that's been a factor in lack of natural flow, and maybe I'm giving them the benefit of doubt that I shouldn't, but that's what's happened. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Now, as much as I love this movie, I still watch this movie every few years, just like Interview with a Vampire. I'm only gonna give it 3 out of 5, even though it's one of my favorite horror movies. I just can't give it more than that and justify it. Moral of the story, if you're gonna be a badass singer, just be careful. You might wake some ancient bloodthirsty monster. And even though she's sexy and gorgeous and amazing, doesn't mean she's not dangerous. If you like my artwork, please don't forget that you can buy it on my website. A lot of things are available as cards, stickers, prints. And if you also like what I do, you want to hang out with me, get to know me more, I do stream on Twitch most Tuesdays, usually Wednesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes Fridays. Out of the two, Interview with a Vampire and Queen of the Damned, what is your preference? Thank you as always to my patrons, and from my dark heart to yours. Have a wonderful day, and please don't die before my next video.